The saying is, third time's the charm, and that was certainly the case for Andrea Horwath in the last election. The NDP leader became leader of the official opposition for just the third time in the party's history. Now, Horwath is hoping her fourth run will result in a promotion to premier. Although briefly sidelined during this campaign by COVID-19, she's been on the virtual hustings, and that's where we find her tonight. From the provincial capital, here's Andrea Horwath, who's seeking personal re-election in the riding of Hamilton Centre. And first and foremost, let's find out how you are. COVID's no fun, so how you doing?
COVID is no fun, and thank you for asking. I'm much better. I'm testing negative.
Good to hear. Let's get to some of the issues here. You said last Friday that you would lower the price of gas right away and permanently. And I guess everybody wants to know how you can do that.
Well, we've been for some time now committing to Ontarians that we're the only ones really that are prepared to go after the big oil and gas companies. And I know that folks are being gouged at the pumps. They have been getting gouged at the pumps for a very long time. And so what we want to do is set a fair price at the pumps that deals with both the wholesale price as well as the retail price and outlaws the gouging that takes place on long weekends, for example, which is what we see all the time. So that's the plan. It's a doable plan. We know that this kind of situation exists in other jurisdictions, and we just believe it's time for people to get a break at the pumps.
Let me follow up with this, because of course you've heard the argument that the cheaper you make gas, the more people will drive, the more they'll pollute. That's not good for climate change. So tell us how what you want to do is consistent with a party that's got something serious to say about climate change.
You're absolutely right. And looking forward to 2030 when we cut emissions by 50% and 2050 when we're at a net zero emissions. But right now, we know that there are big parts of this province where there are no other options than to get into a car. And that's why we have to be realistic about, for example, the fact that a PSW who is needing to go from patient to patient in her rural community is going to need to put gas in the car. And when she can't afford it, she begins to wonder, whether it's worth working anymore because she's actually paying to do her job. And that's where we are now. I've heard that many times in the last little while from folks like that and others. So yes, we do have an EV strategy, and we have a transit strategy, and our Green New Democratic deal includes massive retrofits for energy conservation. But at the end of the day, we need to also make sure that people who aren't in a position at this point in time to take advantage of those things, particularly when it comes to transit and EVs, that they know we don't forget them, and we know that they're hurting.
Well, I was going to get to the Green New Democratic deal a little later, but since you brought it up, let's go for this now. You want to bring forward a plan that you say would help us inherit a livable planet. And I was following Diane Sachs, the deputy leader of the Greens, on the hustings the other day just to see what came up at the door. And one thing she said to me stuck with me. She said, if I really thought the NDP had a good, strong environmental plan, I wouldn't need to be running. So my question is your plan really ambitious enough to do enough about climate change?
I absolutely believe that it is, and I welcome Ms. Sachs to provide some information and advice. I always take that seriously. She did a great job when she was the environmental commissioner, and we will be reinstating that position because those watchdog positions are important for that very reason, to make sure that we have the plans right, and to make sure we're actually following up with the plans that we've made, and that we're measuring the achievements, because you cannot reach your targets and reach your goals if you're not doing the measuring. And that's what the value of an environment commissioner, an independent watchdog is. And we've made that commitment as well to reinstate that position.
Well, she would say, for example, the Greens have got a $65 billion over 4-year plan to deal with climate change, and that all of the other parties, yourself included, kind of pale in comparison. Is that a fair knock on you, do you think?
Well, what I think is important for Ontarians to understand, and there really is only one party that's in a position to begin this work, and that is the NDP. We have a premier right now who most Ontarians, between 6 and 7 out of 10, don't want to see have a second term. And in order to ensure that happens, the best way forward is a vote for the NDP. I don't have a problem with Mr. Schreiner, and a lot of his ideas I would tend to agree with. But at this point in time, job number one has to be making sure that Doug Ford is defeated so that we can start implementing real climate plans. And with all due respect, that's going to only happen with a government that has those goals. And the Greens are not in a position to form a government.
I'm going to circle back to some of that a little later in our conversation because I don't want to get off the path for policy here. And let's talk long-term care, because I know you have ambitious plans to end for-profit, private long-term care, but I also know it's going to cost a lot of money. Can you tell us how that's going to work?
We do have it in our plan, Steve, both on the operational side and on the capital side. We do need to transform long-term care. It has been a disaster for a very long time. The previous Liberal government did not address the problems in long-term care. When COVID came, of course, Doug Ford had been cutting as well in long-term care, and we saw the devastation. We just saw the horrifying things that happened to 4,540, I think, is now the number of people who lost their lives to COVID in long-term care, and to things like dehydration and malnourishment. It was a horror show. We owe it to our seniors not only to fix long-term care, but to fix home care as well, get the profits out and the care back in. And yes, it's gonna cost some investment, but we just cannot turn our backs on what COVID laid bare in terms of the problems with long-term care. And that includes getting, as I said, the profits out and hiring the staff, making those jobs decent jobs, and ensuring that we have smaller homes and services, for home care in particular, as well as long-term care, smaller venues where people have a more home-like environment and where their cultures and their identities are celebrated instead of erased.
And how much do you think that would cost, and over what period of time could you get that done?
Well, we do have a transition that's in our plan, and the capital cost is significant because we know that not only do we have facilities that are completely needing to be overhauled, but we do want to make some of those facilities transform into ones that are much more community oriented. So we have about $158 billion in capital expenditures to bring the system up to par. But that's over at least one term, probably two. It's a transformative time, but we will start by not giving those for-profit homes more contracts. I mean, the Orchard Villa, one of the worst offenders, is about to be approved for a 30-year extension of taking more profits off of the backs of the seniors who are not getting the supports that they need. So we're gonna start that transformation right away.
All right, let's talk healthcare, and I'm going to ask if we can have our director bring up a graphic here which will show what you've got on offer for the healthcare changes you'd like to make, starting with bringing counseling and therapy services into the Ontario Health Insurance Plan, OHIP, reduce the wait list for children's mental health to 30 days, hire 30,000 nurses and 10,000 PSWs, hire 300 doctors in Northern Ontario, and introduce a universal pharmacare program for the province of Ontario. Now, again, we're talking big dollars here. I guess we need to know how you would intend to fund all of this.
Well, there's a couple of things, Steve. First and foremost, I think what's important is for people to know that we can fix these things. COVID has shown us what's been broken, and we have to commit to fixing this. Now is the time. We cannot simply, turn away from what we've seen in the aftermath of COVID, or during COVID, for that matter. We do need to have hospitals that meet people's needs. People in Ontario should be able to have the medications that they need to be well, or to get well, or to survive. The good news is that our plan does exactly that, because it makes those investments. And if you think about it this way, not only do we fix our healthcare system, but we take a heck of a lot of a financial burden off of people's backs. So, for example, if you're not having to shell out for your prescription drugs anymore, if you're able to get mental health services without having to pay for your service with your credit card, instead you can use your OHIP card. If you have access to dental care, those things take pressure off of other parts of our healthcare system, but they also take pressure off of the pocketbook. So it's a win-win plan, and it's one that again, these are the fundamentals. These are the basics. These are the things that people have identified very clearly are priorities for them. What they need to know, though, is that there's a party that's prepared to take them on, a government that's prepared to fix those things that are broken, to go to work every day and start fixing those pieces that are most important to people. And that's exactly what our plan does. And yes, it means we have to engage with people in those fields. For example, the same things we're identifying in Northern Ontario have also been identified by the OHA, for example, and the OMA. So everybody knows that these things are broken. The good news is together we can actually fix them.
Okay, I'm going to come back at you on cost, though, and I raise the issue because I know you would raise taxes on the wealthiest Ontarians and on corporations in order to help pay for this program. Having said that, I do remember your once-upon-a-time federal counterpart, Thomas Mulcair, with whom I think you share a birthday, incidentally. I think even he got to the point where he acknowledged that if you raise taxes on rich people too much, they will consider it confiscatory. They will find all sorts of clever ways to shield their money from you, and you just can't get that much blood out of a stone. And I wonder whether you worry that the avenues you think you have to be able to pay for all these programs won't be there at the end of the day.
No, not at all, Steve. And I would say they're not stones. Those multimillionaires in Ontario are not stones. In fact, they have a lot of wealth, and many of them have seen a significant growth in their wealth over the last couple of years. And so we absolutely are going to ask them to pay a little bit more. And the same with those corporations that made windfall profits during the pandemic and should be contributing to making sure that we fix the things that are broken. There's just no doubt that can be done. So yeah, if you're earning over $220,000, we're going to ding you for a little bit of more taxes. If you're earning over $300,000, even a little bit more. These multi-millionaires that we have in Ontario can afford to pay a little more so that everyday people can afford everyday life in our province. I was on TikTok the other day because, of course, I'm sitting home with the virus, and I was just scrolling through. I don't do that very often. My sister does it all the time. I can never understand why she's sending me TikTok clips, but I started doing that, and I landed on this one woman who was maybe in her late 20s, maybe possibly early 30s, and she was sobbing to her camera and basically saying, I can't make it anymore in Ontario. I can't pay my bills. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't afford to live here. And she was crying. And she said, certainly I'm not, am I alone? Am I the only one? Am I alone? And then it made me scroll even more. And the number of young people that were on TikTok describing how hopeless they are about how unaffordable life is in this province, it's devastating. And so we have an obligation to learn those lessons that were taught by COVID and to take seriously the fact that we have to bring hope to the next generation.
Okay, here's where I circle back to the conversation we were having a few minutes ago, where we talk about if you don't like the current government, who is the logical alternative? And I guess the New Democrats and the Liberals both have a tougher road in a way, because they both want to be the champions of the progressive vote. So they got to deal with that first, and then once they've got that figured out, they can go take on Doug Ford. And I wonder if that makes it just that much more difficult for you to get to where you want to be at the end of the day, because the first thing you got to do is you got to convince people you're better than the Liberals, and then you got to convince people you're better than the Tories. Is that harder to do?
I don't see it that way at all, Steve. In fact, I think job number one is to make sure that we defeat Doug Ford in this election. More than 6 out of 10 people who are polled do not want to see Doug Ford become the premier again. So that's job number one. And that's the job that I'm doing. But I'm also showing folks that we don't have to go back to the same old again, and once again be disappointed by the Liberals. We saw what happened last time. And that's why Stephen Del Duca didn't even win his seat, and why they only got 7 seats and not even party status last time, because they sold off Hydro One, because the hospitals were squeezed to the point where they brought us hallway medicine, the gas plant scandal. It goes on and on. The last thing people want is to end up in the same situation that they got themselves out of in 2018. And what I'm saying to Ontarians is, you do have hope with that you could have a government and a premier that works for you each and every day, that fixes the things that matter the most, and most importantly, is prepared to defeat Doug Ford, and provide a province and a future where people can have some hope that the essentials are being taken care of and people can afford to build a good life here.
I take your point, but it's also, I think, fair to say that you have spent a lot of time during this campaign taking on Stephen Del Duca as well as Doug Ford. And Stephen Del Duca has spent a lot of time in this campaign, the Liberal leader, taking on you and then Doug Ford. And I don't think this is so outrageous to say the Liberal position on many issues and the New Democrat position on many issues is not that far apart. Your bigger ideological wars are with the guy who's currently the Premier of Ontario. I mean, that's fair to say, isn't it?
And that's why we're doing everything we can to show people that the best way to defeat Doug Ford is to vote for the party that has 40 seats, or that had 40 seats in the last campaign, that has an experienced bench of legislators ready to go, that has the kind of ideas and the very solutions that we need right now. Because we can fix the things, or we can take this moment in time to address the concerns that COVID has shown us that we need to address. And I'm going to just say this: those things were broken largely by the Liberals. So who can trust that they're going to be fixed by the very party that broke them? It's a very important moment in time right now, and I think people understand that there's a lot at stake in this election. And that's my message to Ontarians. And I'm going to continue to have that conversation over the next 9 days. And together, we can successfully defeat Doug Ford. And more importantly, or just as importantly, I guess I should say, we can start to fix the things that matter most to people.
Now, I appreciate your answer very much. But then again, I would look to the federal scene, and I could just as easily say, you know what? At the end of the day, your fellow caucus mate once upon a time, Jagmeet Singh, now the federal leader, and the current Liberal leader, Justin Trudeau, they've figured out how to come together and make common cause because they see a bigger enemy in the Conservatives. And I don't see any evidence of that yet between you and Del Duca and maybe even Mike Schreiner. How come?
Well, I think there's a big difference there, Steve. They've already had their election. We have to give the people of this province a chance to make a decision and to determine whether they're going to go back to a situation where it's either Liberals or Conservatives, and life just keeps getting harder, and the things that matter most keep getting broken even more, where more Conservative cuts are going to hurt people even more, where more disappointments from the Liberals are going to not make sure that things are going to ensure rather that things don't get fixed, or this time you can have a premier that's going to work for you each and every day and make sure that the things that matter most are dealt with, are addressed.
No, that's an absolutely fair point. Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Singh didn't fall in love, at least for 6 months after the election took place. So that's a good point. I get that. But tell me this. If you are looking at significant policy differences between you and the Liberals, whom you say are just as bad, if not almost as bad as the Conservatives, tell me one policy area where you and the Liberals are dramatically different on a really important policy.
Privatization, Steve. They privatized long-term care and home care. They allowed more privatization in our healthcare system. They don't believe in respectful bargaining with bargaining units. I mean, we remember that's who the Liberals are. Bill 115 would not happen under an NDP government, just like Bill 124 would not happen under an NDP government. It's really disappointing for people to hear when Liberals talk a good game and then they have 15 years in office and give us things like hallway medicine, erode our healthcare system, make life harder for people, ignore the rental crisis that we have in rental housing, not getting rid of the rental regime that creates huge increases for tenants and rent evictions. They had a chance to do all those things, so they talk about them, but they don't do them.
Understood. All right, let's finish up on some discussion about what you can, in fact, still say with, where are we right now? I guess about a little over a week to go before Election Day. I don't know how much people are engaged. I know like 2 million people watch the leaders' debate, which is a very big number. It suggests to me that people sort of starting at the beginning of the leaders' debate and moving on are more engaged now with the campaign than they perhaps were in the first couple of weeks. But can you think of something that you might say in the next week that you think has an opportunity to cut through that you haven't said yet, that would give people reason to think that the poll numbers are going to move in the next week's time?
Steve, my job as a leader is to show people that they can have some hope this time. And at this point in time, that's what people need. That's what they tell me they want. They want to see some hope for the future, for their kids, hope that you know, their 30-year-old is going to get out of the basement at some point in the next couple of years. And we all know that's not good for anybody. Having young people without hope for their future, being able to either afford their own home or even rentals these days. For me, that's what I hear on the doorstep anyways. What I hear when I go into those campaigns that my that my candidates are fighting on the ground in every riding, by the way, which is not the same as the Liberals. They haven't managed to field a candidate in every riding this time around. But it's about hope that you can have a government that actually starts to fix the things that are problematic, starts to actually make life a little bit easier instead of a lot harder, which is what we've seen for the last 4 years, and sadly, a number of years prior to that as well.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one last question, and it's really going to tick you off, but here it comes anyway. Is it possible the numbers haven't moved very much during the course of this campaign because the biggest chunk of Ontarians is essentially content to have Doug Ford continue as Premier?
Well, I think one of the things that's clear in all of the polling is that that's not the case. That 6 or 7 out of 10 Ontarians, when polled, do not want to see Doug Ford as the Premier next time around.
But they're all split among you other parties, though. I know, but they're all split among you other parties. The reality is
why they need to come together and support the party that's got the most steam this time. As I said before, we've got a great team of candidates. They really reflect the entire breadth and depth of our province from all kinds of occupational backgrounds, lots of legislative experience, much diversity on every level. Really proud of the team we're fielding. And if you give the NDP your vote this time, we will absolutely get to work right away on fixing the things that matter most to you.
Andrea Horwath, it's good to see you feeling better. We thank you for your time here on TVO tonight. Be well the rest of the way.
Thanks so much, Steve. Take care.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.